It's a showdown that's been building for years and now it's finally hit the courts, a dramatic split, a battle over custody and a ruling that could change everything. But what really happened behind the scenes? Why are fans calling it Christine's ultimate comeback and Kody's biggest defeat? Stick around because this is the chapter they didn't want leaving Kody written. The fallout. In November 2021, after nearly 3 decades together, Christine Brown announced that she was leaving Kody Brown, her spiritual husband and the patriarch of the Sister Wives family. The announcement hit fans hard, but for those who had followed the show closely, the signs were already there. Christine was Kody's third wife in the Brown family's plural marriage. Though their union was never legally binding, it was deeply rooted in the family's shared faith and lifestyle. Christine had been a cornerstone of the Brown household, known for her upbeat personality and her dedication to her children. But over the years things began to crack beneath the surface. The Sister Wives series documented much of this slow unraveling. By the later seasons, Christine had become increasingly vocal about feeling neglected and dismissed in the marriage. She often expressed frustration over Kody's emotional absence and the lack of support she received, particularly when it came to parenting decisions and personal autonomy. Kody, for his part, admitted on camera that he was no longer in love with Christine and even questioned whether he ever had been. It was clear that the bond between them had eroded. One key moment came when Christine revealed that Kody had told her he no longer wanted an intimate relationship. For Christine, that was the final straw. She later said in interviews that she could no longer stay in a marriage where she felt unloved and unwanted. But the decision to leave wasn't just about the breakdown of her relationship with Kody, it was also about setting a new course for her life and her youngest child. Truly, Christine made the difficult decision to leave Flagstaff, Arizona, where the Brown family had relocated in 2018, and moved to Utah, where she could be closer to her older children and extended family. Truly, who was just 11 at the time, moved with her. Christine's relocation marked a bold step toward independence in Utah. She was surrounded by support, including her daughter Aspen and her husband Mitch, who lived nearby. Christine had always dreamed of being near her children and grandchildren, and now she was finally making that dream a reality. Meanwhile, Kody stayed behind in Arizona, where he continued living with his fourth wife Robin, his only legal wife after he divorced his first wife Mary in 2014 to adopt Robin's children. Kody's bond with Robin had long been a point of tension within the family. Christine and the other wives had often voiced feelings of imbalance, noting that Kody seemed to favor Robin over the rest. As Christine began building a new life in Utah, Kody's world in Flagstaff seemed smaller and more isolated. Publicly, Kody offered a statement acknowledging the split, saying that Christine's decision had brought sadness but that he respected her choice. Christine, for her part, expressed gratitude for the years they had spent together but made it clear she was moving forward. Fans of Sister Wives watched the fallout unfold in real time on the show and across social media. Christine became more open, more vocal, and visibly happier. She began documenting her new life, showing followers her home in Utah, her adventures with Truly, and her growing sense of peace. Her departure marked a major shift in the Sister Wives dynamic. Christine wasn't just the first wife to leave, she was the first to challenge the family structure from the inside and walk away on her own terms. It was a statement not only about love and marriage but about self-respect and personal growth. Christine's move was also symbolic in a broader context. For years, the Sister Wives show had framed plural marriage as a complex but functional lifestyle choice. Christine's departure disrupted that narrative. It made clear that plural marriage could come with deep emotional costs, especially when one partner's needs were no longer being met. By the time Christine settled in Utah, she had already begun laying the groundwork for her next chapter. She started a successful luau business, gained a strong social media following, and became an outspoken figure on women's empowerment and personal boundaries. She embraced single motherhood, celebrating milestones with Truly and reconnecting with her older children, including Milty Pedden and Isabel. Through it all, Christine's focus remained firm. She wanted a better life for herself and her children. Her exit was measured, determined, and rooted in years of quiet discontent. And while Christine seemed to be thriving in her new life, the same couldn't be said for the Brown family back in Arizona. The once unified plural household was now visibly fractured. The departure of one wife raised questions about the future of the entire family structure, but at this stage Christine wasn't looking back. She had left behind a lifestyle that no longer served her, and in doing so she had taken the first step in a journey that would eventually lead to far greater battles and even bigger victories, such as the explosive child support Christina's lawsuit ruling. Legal lines drawn on September 16. 2024 Christine Brown made her next decisive move not on camera but in court. Nearly 3 years after ending her relationship with Kody Brown, Christine filed a formal lawsuit in Utah that would push their separation into the legal system and force a reckoning over their shared child. Truly Grace Brown. The lawsuit marked a dramatic shift in tone from Christine's previous public posture while she'd been open about her personal transformation and new life. This filing showed she was no longer content to leave things unresolved behind the scenes. She wanted structure, protection and recognition, especially for Truly. According to court documents filed in the state of Utah, Christine's petition had 3 key components: establishment of paternity, full physical and legal custody of Truly, and a request for child support from Kody. In addition, she filed for a domestic relations injunction, a court order that prevents both parties from engaging in certain behaviors during legal proceedings. This included restrictions on harassment, financial retaliation, or either parent taking Truly out of state without the other's consent. These were not symbolic moves. Each filing addressed a real legal gap created by the unique circumstances of Christine and Kody's relationship, since they had never been legally married and since Kody had not formally established legal paternity of Truly through the court system. Christine's lawsuit was necessary to ensure that Truly's rights and Christine's rights as her custodial parent were legally recognized and protected under Utah law. One striking detail in the filing was that Kody Brown was not listed on Truly's birth certificate. This omission, while unusual for a biological father who had publicly acknowledged paternity, was reportedly a deliberate decision made years earlier. At the time of Truly's birth in 2010, the Brown family was still operating in legal gray zones due to the criminalization of polygamy in Utah. To avoid legal scrutiny, Christine reportedly left Kody's name off the birth certificate, a decision that would later complicate legal matters. This lack of legal recognition meant that from the state's perspective, Kody had no established parental rights over Truly. He could not make decisions about her medical care, education, or travel. He had no enforceable visitation rights. Conversely, Christine had no legal mechanism to seek financial support unless she petitioned the court to establish paternity retroactively, which is exactly what she did. The paternity filing was a formal request for the court to legally acknowledge Kody as Truly's father, something the public had long taken for granted but which in the eyes of the law had never been codified. Once paternity was established, the court would be empowered to make decisions regarding custody and support. Christine's petition requested full legal and physical custody, meaning she would make all major decisions and Truly would primarily reside with her. This was consistent with how things had already functioned since Christine's move to Utah. Truly had been living exclusively with her mother, attending school there and forming a life separate from Kody's household in Arizona. Christine's filing sought to cement this arrangement into a formal custody order. In addition to custody, Christine asked the court to order child support payments from Kody. While the specific dollar amount was not made public, Utah law allows for standardized support calculations based on income and custody percentage. Because Christine requested full custody, Kody, if paternity was established, would likely be ordered to pay a substantial portion of Truly's expenses, including health insurance, education, and general living costs. Finally, the domestic relations injunction was a safeguard. It prohibited both parties from disrupting the child's schooling, interfering with each other's financial decisions, or relocating the child without mutual agreement or a court order. It also barred harassment or intimidation, a clause that gave Christine additional legal protection as the case unfolded. While no public statements were made by Christine or Kody immediately after the filing, the timing and structure of the lawsuit sent a clear message. Christine was done waiting for cooperation. She wanted enforceable rights and obligations, and she wanted the court to recognize the reality that Truly was and had long been primarily in her care. At this point, it was no longer just a family matter, it was a legal one. The informal agreements and emotional negotiations of their past had run their course. Christine had drawn a clear line, and it ran straight through the courtroom. This lawsuit would lay the groundwork for everything that followed, from custody hearings to financial disputes to public revelations about the nature of Kody's role as a father. But in this moment, it was a matter of simple justice, a mother demanding legal clarity and a child finally being brought under the full protection of the law. Courtroom confrontations on December 1, 2024. Christine and Kody Brown met again, this time through a computer screen. Their long-simmering family dispute had now officially entered the courtroom. The hearing, conducted via web conference, was a crucial procedural step in what had become a complex and high-stakes legal case. Though the hearing itself was not open to the Public records from the Utah court system confirmed key developments. The court officially categorized the matter as a Track 3 case, a legal designation for significant custody disputes. This classification isn't assigned lightly in Utah. Track 3 cases involve high levels of disagreement, often marked by emotional strain, contested parenting rights, and sometimes accusations of manipulation or alienation. It signaled to the court that this was more than a routine custody petition. Track 3 also means the case would be subject to tighter oversight and slower resolution timelines. The court anticipated conflict, which meant every decision would need to be scrutinized with extra care. Judges, evaluators, and mediators assigned to Track 3 disputes typically have additional training in high-conflict family law, and the legal process itself becomes more rigorous, sometimes involving parenting coordinators or evaluations by child psychologists. This classification, though procedural, told its own story. Despite the public image of Christine's independence and Kody's continued presence in Arizona, the underlying custody dispute had not been resolved privately or amicably. Both parties had retained attorneys. Both were prepared to argue their positions, and both, according to court documents, had fundamental disagreements about the future of their shared child. At the December hearing, the judge did not issue any final rulings. That wasn't the purpose of this early conference. Instead, the focus was on case management, establishing timelines, setting expectations, and mandating the next step: mediation. Mediation is standard in Utah family court, but in Track 3 cases it's often mandatory and more involved. The judge scheduled Christine and Kody for a formal mediation session on May 21, 2025, nearly 6 months after the hearing. This timeline reflects the complexity of the dispute. The court wanted both parties to gather evidence, submit affidavit, and be prepared to discuss custody, visitation, and communication in a structured and supervised setting. Unlike litigation, mediation is meant to foster compromise. A neutral third-party mediator helps the parents identify common ground and develop a parenting plan. However, in high-conflict cases like this one, it's common for those sessions to end in deadlock. The Browns' long and public history of emotional strain, mistrust, and fractured communication would not make things easier. Still, mediation represented the court's preferred path forward. Judges in Utah family court typically reserve trial settings as a last resort. A successful mediation would spare both sides the financial and emotional toll of a full custody trial and might lead to a co-parenting framework both could live with. Whether either party was open to compromise remained unclear by this stage. Christine had lived full-time with Truly in Utah for several years, while Kody remained in Arizona. If Christine was seeking sole custody, as her earlier filings indicated, she would likely use mediation to formalize the status quo. Kody's position, however, had not been detailed in public filings. His willingness or refusal to participate in a shared parenting arrangement would likely come into sharp focus during the May session. Though the hearing didn't provide the bombshell moment some may have expected, it marked a major escalation in the process. For the first time, the private decisions made after Christine's departure had been pulled into the legal system, and now a judge would oversee what happened next. Observers of the sister wives saga were quick to note the irony. For years, Kody had been the family's decision-maker, operating from a position of patriarchal control, but now in a Utah courtroom the power was balanced. Christine had taken formal steps to level the legal playing field, and the state was watching. More importantly, the December hearing placed Truly at the center of the case in a new and sobering way. What had once been a family's private drama was now a matter of custody classifications, court orders, and mediation deadlines. Every move from this point forward would have implications not just for Christine and Kody but for their daughter's future stability, legal protections, and emotional well-being. As the calendar turned toward 2025, both parties were now on the clock. They had until May 21 to prepare, negotiate, and either resolve their dispute or set the stage for a full custody trial that could expose even more of their fractured relationship to legal scrutiny. The confrontation had moved beyond hurt feelings and emotional distance. It was now a matter of legal standing, child custody classifications, and court-mandated steps, and whether through resolution or escalation. It was clear that the battle wasn't over, it was just entering its next phase. Christine's legal victory. Christina's legal victory. After months of legal back and forth and emotional uncertainty, Christine Brown triumphed and Kody Brown got crushed in an explosive child support ruling. In May 2025, Christine secured full custody of her youngest daughter Truly Grace Brown, along with a court-ordered child support agreement from her ex Kody. For Christine, It marked the legal conclusion of a battle she'd been fighting privately for years. For Kody, it was a blow both financially and reputationally. According to court records and coverage from multiple outlets, the custody arrangement formally grants Christine primary physical and legal custody of Truly. This means that Christine will continue to make all major decisions regarding Truly's schooling, medical care and living situation, responsibilities she had effectively been handling alone since relocating to Utah in 2021. What made this ruling so significant, however, was the accompanying child support order. After nearly 13 years of co-parenting Truly without a formal legal structure in place, Kody was now by court mandate required to provide financial support. The exact amount of the support order has not been made public, but Utah law bases child support calculations on the parents' incomes and custody share. With Christine granted full custody, Kody's obligation was expected to be substantial. For many observers, the ruling underscored what Christine had been pushing for all along: legal recognition of the reality she had been living since leaving Arizona. She had been Truly's full-time parent. She had borne the costs, made the decisions and provided the stability. Now the court agreed. Insiders close to the case described Christine as relieved, even emotional, when the ruling was finalized. While she had built a new life in Utah with strength and grace, the weight of navigating motherhood without legal protection or financial support had taken its toll. Now, with the court on record affirming her role and Kody's responsibilities, that burden had lightened. She was even reported to have said, "It's time to pay up for everything I've been through." For Kody, the ruling came as a bitter pill. According to sources close to the family, he had attempted during negotiations to argue for informal visitation arrangements in exchange for avoiding child support payments. These tactics were not successful. The court saw through the maneuvering and sided with Christine and Kody. Well, let's just say he was angry. Christine herself didn't hold back publicly in a move that made headlines. She called Kody a deadbeat dad during the proceedings. The comment was not made lightly. It reflected years of frustration over what Christine characterized as Kody's emotional and financial absence in Truly's life. It was a shift from the early days of Sister Wives, when Kody portrayed himself as a present and engaged father, but in Christine's view that image hadn't matched reality, at least not when it came to Truly. As the child had grown, Kody's involvement reportedly diminished, especially after Christine's move out of state. Fans of the show had noticed the distance too. Truly was often absent from family events filmed in Arizona, and Christine's social media posts consistently showed the two of them together solo. Now the court's ruling appeared to validate what many had suspected: Kody had not been playing an active role as a co-parent. The ruling also carried symbolic weight. For years, Kody had retained authority in the Brown household, structuring the family, directing decisions and often sidelining dissent. But this time it was Christine who took control. She didn't ask for approval, she went to court. She used the law to protect herself and her daughter, and she won. To some, the outcome was long overdue. Christine had been the first of the Brown wives to leave. She was also the first to legally challenge Kody and hold him accountable beyond the camera. In doing so, she set a precedent not just for herself but potentially for others. Navigating informal relationships with shared children and no legal structure. While the ruling resolved the legal question of custody and support, it also raised deeper questions about the state of the Brown family. Kody, according to multiple reports, was angry because the loss of control it represented. His family, once central to his identity, had become increasingly fragmented, and this ruling made clear that Christine wasn't just emotionally done, she was legally protected and no longer answerable to him. As Christine walked out of that legal process, she was a woman who had stood her ground, taken the hits and forced a legal system to see what she had always known, that she was doing it all. And now Kody was finally on the hook for his share. Aftermath and the road aftermath ahead. Following Christine Brown's legal victory in her custody and child support battle with Kody Brown, the ripple effects across the sister wife's family were immediate and far-reaching. The court's ruling didn't just close a legal chapter, it cracked open deeper questions about loyalty, priorities, and the future of a once unified family. Not long after Christine's legal win, public attention turned to Kody and his only remaining wife, Robin. The couple had previously made news for spending $2.1 million mansion in Flagstaff, Arizona, a home that stood in contrast to the financial pressures Kody's other wives had previously faced. The timing and scale of the purchase raised eyebrows, especially now that Kody was legally obligated to pay child support to Christine. Critics questioned his financial priorities, asking how a man who had fought against support payments could afford such a lavish home. Meanwhile, Christine's life continued on a radically different trajectory. In 2023, she married David Woolley, a construction executive based in Utah. Their relationship, which Christine shared openly on social media, appeared stable, grounded and supportive. For Christine, the remarriage symbolized not just romantic renewal but the creation of a healthy family environment. She continued to focus on her children's emotional well-being and her role as a full-time parent to Truly, while staying closely connected with her adult children and grandchildren. Kody's relationships with his other children, particularly those from his marriages with Mary and Janelle, reportedly became even more strained in the aftermath of the custody case. Some of the adult Brown children have spoken out publicly about feeling neglected or abandoned, and several have chosen to distance themselves from their father. The fractures within the family that had been building over the years now appeared more visible and permanent. As for the Sister Wives franchise, Christine's assertiveness and legal steps have added a new dimension to the show's ongoing narrative. Her departure, remarriage and courtroom win could significantly shape the direction of future episodes, with fans increasingly invested in the individual wives' post-Kody journeys. Christine's story may serve as a blueprint for reclaiming autonomy and securing legal protections in non-traditional family structures. Observers have noted that Christine's willingness to pursue legal action, not just leave emotionally, sets a powerful precedent. It's a shift from private heartbreak to public accountability. She demonstrated that spiritual marriages still have legal implications, especially when children are involved, and that women in similar situations have recourse beyond emotional closure. Meanwhile, the Brown family's future remains uncertain, with Christine gone and Janelle and Mary also reportedly separated from Kody, the polygamous structure that once defined. Although the legal custody case is closed, its implications are still being felt in real life and possibly on screen, as Kody's financial responsibilities, public reputation, and personal relationships are all in flux. On the other hand, Christine has emerged not only as a mother with full custody and legal standing but also as a public figure, reshaping what empowerment looks like after multiple marriages. The Brown family saga isn't over just yet, so what do you think will happen next? Let us know in the comments below.